Hello, I welcome you to today's class on balancing of chemical equation with the simple chemistry teacher, where we bring in chemistry concepts in a clear, simple way. We are not in a rush, we are not rushing to anywhere, so we are taking our time to explain this concept little by little, one after the other, so that you will understand it and apply it into broader questions and other many questions that we have to solve under it. So we will be starting with balancing of chemical equation, and before we start, do not forget to follow and like our page, because we are bringing in amazing things for you to learn. So we'll be talking about balancing of chemical equation, and by now you must have known what we mean by chemical equation, that there are various ways of representing chemical reactions. Now, in performing some chemical reactions, we deal with equations, and you can't just start running a reaction without knowing the quantity of the compounds that you are going to use. So in this balancing of chemical equation, it helps us to really get to know what we are going to use in the course of running our reactions, so that you won't do something and get a different result. Example, write a balanced chemical reaction for this, a balanced chemical equation for this reaction. When potassium trioxocarbonate 5 is heated gently, the crystal melts and then decompose to liberate oxygen gas and form a white dense residue of potassium chloride. Now this is a word, like it is written in words. This reaction, they are written in words. So for you to really balance a chemical equation, you need to know your elements, especially first 20 elements, at least at the beginning level. First 30, you need to know your element, the periodic table of elements. You need to know the formulas for each of these elements. Now we are given the names of this compound, and this reaction is a decomposition reaction. So when potassium chloride, that is KClO3, as you can see in the one that I colored green, when it is heated, it gives potassium chloride and oxygen gas. Now, is the above equation balanced? Remember, our aim is to balance this equation, and in a situation whereby it is not balanced, we may not actually get what we are looking for. Now let's check. The LHS you are seeing there is the left hand side, and the RHS is the right hand side. So let's look at the left hand side. The number of potassium there is 1, number of atoms of potassium there is 1, the number of atoms of chlorine there is 1, the number of atoms of oxygen there is 3. At the right hand side, the number of potassium there is 1, the number of chlorine is 1, the number of oxygen atoms there are 2 oxygen atoms. So they are not balanced. And remember, our aim is to balance this equation, and one of the main objective of balancing a chemical equation is that the number of compounds at the right hand side will be equal to the number of compounds at the left hand side. So each element, they will have the same number of atoms. So that is our aim. And by merely looking at this equation, and from what we have checked, we have discovered that this is not balanced. Now let's look for another trial. Now let's assume that we proceed further, and we now added 3 in front of oxygen at the right hand side. Now let's check whether it is balanced. How many potassium can you see at both sides? We have 1 potassium at the left hand side, 1 potassium at the right hand side. Chlorine, we have 1 chlorine at the left hand side and 1 chlorine at the right hand side. Oxygen, we have at the left hand side, we have 3. Then at the right hand side, the 3 in front of the oxygen molecule, it will multiply the 2 atoms of oxygen to now give us 6. So with that, this equation is balanced in terms of potassium, in terms of chlorine, but when it comes to oxygen, it is not yet balanced. And before we proceed, may I remind you that while balancing a chemical equation, you don't just start with big numbers. You can't just start with 5 or 4 or with 10 or with 100. No, you start from 2, you start from 3. Sometimes the equation is even balanced itself. So you need to look critically to know whether the equation has been balanced and to know where you will start balancing it using small numbers. That's why we are proceeding with small numbers first. Now, looking at this equation in terms of oxygen, it is not balanced. So what are we going to do? We checked further. Now, if I'm doing this, like if I'm in an exam, or if you're in an exam and you are doing this, you have to be fast. That's why you need to practice this over and over again, so that in the exam you'll be fast to know how to do these things within seconds. So you need to practice this over and over again. Now, we can start trying, because if you start trying, we may have 5 examples here, 6 examples here. So this is the third one, and let's look at this third one. We now added 2 in front of potassium chlorate at the left hand side, and we now added 2 at potassium chloride at the right hand side. Now let's look at them. How many potassium do we have? At the left hand side, remember, whenever you add a number in front of any compound, that number multiplies all the atoms there. So for potassium, 2 times 1 will give us 2. That's why you are seeing 2 there. At the right hand side is the same thing, 2. Chlorine, 2 times 1 atom of chlorine will give us 2. And at the right hand side, we are getting the same thing, 2. Now in oxygen, 2 times 3 will give us 6. And at the right side, 3 times 2 is also giving us 6. And now it is balance. So can we say that we have balanced this chemical equation? So one thing you should know about balancing a chemical equation, number one, is that you should know how to write the equation of the reaction. And to know how to write the equation of the reaction, you need to know your elements, the chemical symbol for each of those elements, and most compounds. That's why you need to read your textbook, all the time. You need to get conversant with these compounds, so that anytime you see it, anytime you are given, because sometimes they will give it to you as words, as a sentence, they may not write the formula for you, so you need to write out the formula before you even start. That's why some persons may not know how to write the formula, and if you don't know how to write the formula, you will not do anything. In fact, you cannot even run the reaction. So that is why it is essential, and I believe that you have learned something today. So tell us in the comment section what you learned today, and we are bringing more of this, from the list 1 to the advanced one. We are coming in full force. So I thank you for staying with us and for watching this video. If you learned something, you can comment, do like, follow us in all our social media handle. Go to our link button, you will see where our social media handles. On IG, we are on IG, our name is the simple chemistry teacher, and the link to the comment to it is on our Facebook page. So just look at the link there. If you're watching from Instagram, you can also see the link on our bio. So I thank you for being with us, and I believe that you have learned something today. Do have a wonderful time.